Good morning, sunshine. Welcome back to Tiger's Occult. I'm your paranormal researcher and investigator, Dr. Morris, and today's entity is the Basque Bull, the Aatxe. Going off our three main reference texts, Elias's Encyclopedia of Spirits, Bain's Encyclopedia of Spirits and Ghosts in World Mythology, and Goyle's Encyclopedia of Ghosts and Spirits, and a smattering of further research, I'm going to tell you where it comes from, how to identify it, what it does, we'll address any ethical concerns, and then we'll go over safe interaction with the entity if you should ever come across it during your travels. According to Bain's and Illy's encyclopedias, this cave spirit comes from the Basque area in southwest Europe. Now, the Basques didn't exactly survive Christianity's arrival between the 4th and 12th centuries AD, so records of their mythology is extraordinarily spotty. The Christians of the time didn't exactly have the greatest track record of preserving pagan cultures. Most of our information about the Basque people comes from Strabo, a 1st century Greek geographer, philosopher, and historian, Arab authors from the 8th century during the Umayyad conquest of Spain, various sources of the Catholic Inquisition who didn't exactly record pagan religious information with the best of intentions, and various 19th and 20th century collections, mostly from Father Jose Miguel Barandarian, a Catholic priest who was fascinated by his people's history. Through these records, incomplete as they are, we can start to piece together who and what these mythological entities are. Physical identification methods. Because most of the records of the Aatxe were destroyed, visual documentation doesn't seem to exist anymore. No cave paintings, no contemporary art, no genuine illustrations seem to have survived. Therefore, it is virtually impossible to show you a legitimate depiction of this entity. Furthermore, as this particular entity is known to be a shapeshifter, not only is it exceedingly difficult to show an image of this entity, it's also very difficult to rate on the usual CDI system. One of its most widely known forms is that of a bright red bull, which would make it a Class 6 animalistic anchored genius due to the fact that it is an animal entity and closely related to the Gros de Cerise in France. Keep in mind we're using the term genius here in the classical Latin context, where the entity in question is more similar to a Greek daemon. These entities aren't necessarily good or evil in the same way we understand modern Judeo-Christian demons to be evil as a whole, but rather morally ambiguous. We'll delve a little bit deeper into the ethical concerns later on, but for now, let's get back on track with proper identification information. The bull is nearly always depicted as a large, muscular, powerfully built entity with sharp horns and glowing red eyes. Now, that being said, while its primary form is a bull, it can shapeshift into the form of a man, but that man was never truly human. This leads me to identify the man form as a Class 5 corporeal anchored genius. Information on the physical description of the man is incredibly sparse outside of being red, and his eyes are described as glowing like embers or coal, leading us to believe that either he rarely shifts form or he uses a different form every time. Either way, that's something to watch out for. Oftentimes, those we think are just a normal person like you and me aren't human at all. One of the most defining features of the Aatxe is its voice. Said to be deep and booming, it can be heard from great distances. He's also highly intelligent and cunning, so you'd best be on your toes if you should meet with him. Now we're going to get into folklore, tales, and legends. Gaili and Illies, as well as most of the folklore surrounding the Aatxe, indicate that the Aatxe tends to gravitate towards the pre-Christian goddess Mari, also known as Mari Uraka, and Botoko Mari, the Lady of Amboto, and Murumindiko Dama, the Lady of Muramindi. I'm certain we'll have a dive into Mari later, so we're not going to get too sidetracked here. Instead, directing our attention back to the Aatxe, we'll learn that he has the power to create storms at night. He frequently does this in the belief that good people will seek shelter from the elements, while only criminals and those with bad intentions will wander about in such terrible weather. He seems to be an enforcer of sorts, preying on such criminals. Other tales indicate that the Aatxe is something of a guardian spirit with absolutely no tolerance of disrespect for the earth, spirits, or any sacred rituals. Now, the ethical concerns here, there's a significant number. A reminder to all, just because a being or entity is paranormal or supernatural in nature, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're automatically evil and need to be hunted down. There's even some evidence to indicate that just because a supernatural entity is part of a specific group, that also doesn't define their behavior and doesn't necessarily warrant their destruction. So, our friend here, the Aatxe, is a guardian spirit who deliberately preys on criminals, robbers, and other ne'er-do-wells. He demands manners, bravery, honesty, and decency. If you're on his bad side, perhaps you'd better look at your own life, Safe interaction protocols. Between the Aatse's innate size, strength, and intelligence, I would advise caution if you intend to directly engage him. However, due to the ethical concerns raised earlier and the Aatse's general behavior, we're not inclined to believe that such a direct confrontation would be necessary. Instead, we here at Tigers Occult Books and Research believe that the most positive method of interacting with this entity would be a combination of deterrence and appeasement. Be polite, be professional, be brave and honest, and do not lie or try to cheat him. So, be a good person, and you'll never have to worry about encountering the Aatse. Anyway, that's about all the information I was able to dig up on about this mainly inoffensive entity. I hope you found it informative. As always, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Till next time, fellas, I'll see you down here at the lab.